Welcome back to Mary Elizabeth Jones' Variety Hour.
Yes, we've never been at this location before. This is the Amelia Public School, I think. We usually just drive around looking for a picnic table, and we found one. We found one. That's how it goes. We have a very oh, by the way, I gotta tell you, my friend Keith Van Allen, he's trying to put all the shows I've done with him on there. He's remastered them and reconfigured them and everything, and re-edited them, and so I think the first one is up on YouTube right now. So check it out. It's called Van Allen's Attic. Now, The reason why I bring this up is that it's pretty much the same show we're doing now. It's just pretty simple show, one long take. I don't know how he could improve on that. Unless he gets close-ups and back and then tries to get editing like Orson Welles or something. But he's gonna try that. Now, let's see. It's summertime. The weather is getting warm. People always ask, how could I stand wearing a suit in the summertime? It's very easy for me. You know how? Yeah. I'll only wear natural fibers. This is cotton shirt, silk coat, silk pants, silk socks, silk underwear. It's a lot of silk, a lot of cotton.
Speaking of Keith Van Allen,
yeah.
One of my friends who that I've known for years, who I'm on Facebook with, she knows Keith Van Allen.
She knows him?
Yeah.
The poor woman.
Yeah, and she told me that Keith Van Allen remembered my grandfather.
He knows your grandfather?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I got to ask him about that.
Yes.
Yeah. I know he watches this show.
He remembers my mom's side of the family.
Yeah, he's been around in Richmond for a long time, so he knows a lot about Richmond history and everything. So he always tells me, when I'm with him, he always says, "You see that house over there? My great grandfather designed it, and then you see that tree over there? My granddad planted it, you know." And I said, "Oh wow." Me, I'm new to Richmond comparatively. I've been here since I was 10, which was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was at I tell you, I think I mentioned on other shows, I was at a lot of I was at the VCU graduation. I had a nephew graduate, and I had another nephew graduate at the J. Sergeant Reynolds graduation.
Okay.
So and you sit there for 3 hours hearing speeches, and what a pain in the ass it is.
How boring can that
You've
be?
never known. No, it's all a prelude to they announce your friends or family's name, and then you get it. And of course, that's when I start cheering and everything else.
Yeah.
There's my car. My car just drove by. Now that I don't have one anymore, traded in for a bus pass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was at the graduations and all, and so I when you have a big family like mine, cousins and it's like every year the graduation season is a big deal. But there's a lot of picnics and a lot of barbecues and a lot of parties. So that part is good.
Yeah.
I don't seem to go to those so much anymore. I gotta tell you some other funny stuff. I've been watching a lot of movies streaming. I'm kind of a homebody lately, and I've been watching these movies. These are movies that I saw maybe 20 years ago, and now I'm seeing them a second time. And then I forgot how good they were the first time. Because a lot of times you see a movie the first time, they just move on. Like a lot of comedies are that way. A lot of Mel Brooks movies. You can watch a Mel Brooks movie like Blazing Saddles or the Robin Hood Men in Tights, or certainly Spaceballs, and you can see them over and over again, and you still find something funny in them. those ones with Leslie Nielsen, the Police Academy, not Police Academy, the Police Squad movies. Those are so funny. And the Police Academy movies could be funny too.
Yeah.
So in fact, I was watching and sometimes I go to people's houses and watch it. And I was watching it with someone who was kind of brain damaged, and she has no emotion at all. And we put on a movie that I thought she might like. It was called The Shape of Water. And sometimes I like to introduce it in a weird way. I said, this is about a woman who falls in love, a woman who cannot speak, and she falls in love with a fish, a guy who's mostly fish. and then she says, I don't want to see that. And then I put it on, and she shows no emotion, and she starts crying because at the end of the movie, they both fall in love, and the fish man and the woman, and then they both say, I love you. I love you, I love you. And then this woman said, I love you too. And she started crying. I said, gosh, I think this is a breakthrough. Now this movie, The Shape of Water, I'm sure you know of it, and you've probably seen it. It actually was a highly regarded film in its day, and it won Best Picture Oscar in 2017. And the reason why I wanted to see it again is because since that movie, the guy who plays the Russian scientist in it, I made a movie with Michael Stuhlbarg. He was in Dope Sick. Oh. Yeah. And he was probably in the scene you were in. I still haven't seen all of Dope Sick. And I certainly haven't seen myself in it. I saw myself way in the background and just a blur.
I haven't seen myself in it either, but I did see myself in Swagger, though.
You did see yourself in Swagger, okay.
Yeah. I think I sent you a picture.
Let me tell you something. I sort of saw myself in Swagger for a split second. I thought I'd see myself a little better than Swagger. I didn't really have too much hope for Dope Sick. But, that is my claim to fame, is when I could always point out to people I was there. There I am in the movies. Some movies I'm in it better than others. But listen, they pay you quite well to be an extra, like $100 a day, $200 a day. And so people said, oh, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I said, yeah, you spend that money pretty fast. What really counts is that you're in the movie forever, and so you can show it to all your friends and everything. So, my dad, who's no longer with us, he's in a few movies, so I could always stop frame certain movies like The Contender with Jeff Bridges, and what he's in the movie Dave with Kevin Kline. So you could actually see, and Dad's gone, but he's still in the movie, and that's important because now I the joke I always make about movies. When you're an extra in a movie, you might see yourself here. You're famous for 15 minutes. You always heard that story, yeah. By Andy Warhol. You're famous 15 minutes now. They say, well, is your 15 minutes up? He goes, no. I'm in 2 seconds in this movie, 3 seconds in that movie. I got a whole long career to fill up. So I'm still trying to get in the movies, Yeah. I just love show business.
Yeah, I do too.
Now, yeah. I always wanted to be in show business. I couldn't wait to see the world, and when I got out of school, and once I turned 22, started traveling, started being in show business and stuff, and I've done quite well for myself as far as making money at regular jobs, but yeah, I always wanted I love being in these podcasts. I was talking about I found out something when you're an extra in a movie. Always try to get a job when you're an extra walking or standing behind somebody. Certainly try to be in the scene with the main actor in it, because they're not going to cut him out of it. Yeah. They're going to keep you next to the person. Yeah. I was in a movie once, The Murder of Mary Fagan, and they said, we want you to take a wanted poster and hammer it up on a tree. And this is my first movie, so I thought, oh, I'm going to get a shot all to myself. Well, it was on the cutting room floor. It's the first thing. They don't get rid of the stuff with the actors in it. They get rid of the stuff with the extras. And that's it. And that was gone. Yeah. But and that is why even when I'm on a show with like 3 people, I'm on other shows where there might be 3 people, I'm always standing. I like to stand because you could move with the camera around. You see, when you're sitting like this, you're kind of stuck. You can't really do too much. And you have to wait for the movie camera to go by you when actually, when you're walking, you could actually walk with the movie camera and get in all the shots. Or if you get out of the shot, you can just get back into the shot. I do all that. Yeah. I know all the tricks.
Yeah.
I heard stories about being in a movie, like they film what's called a master shot, where they have all the actors do the scene, and they do all the dialogue and all. And then they take each actor and just do his lines, you know. Like, say everyone's standing around a campfire or sitting at a campfire. Well, they film the whole thing with everyone's doing it, and then they do the close-ups they do it over and over again, and the close-ups of the people, and somebody said that the trick to getting close-ups is to kind of mess up. Don't do such a great job at the master shot, but in the close-ups do better. So that's a better shot. We'll keep the close-up of the guy there. I think Ward Bond from Wagon Train figured that out in John Ford film. But you've been listening to a lot of good music lately. What music do you like?
Stephen Sondheim.
Been listening to Stephen Sondheim?
I bought his record last week.
What was the show?
It was the Essential.
The Essential Stephen. As all different songs from all the shows. Yeah.
West Side Story. Into the Woods.
And
Gypsy.
I remember a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. Was very good. And Stephen Sondheim. He has a new show on. I think he has an old show on Broadway with Daniel Radcliffe. I forget what it's called, but it's on Broadway right now. But then I saw last year, or 2 or 3 years ago, he died. And then last year, I was in New York and I saw Company, a new version of Company.
Oh, they had some of that music.
Some of Company, the Ladies Who Lunch, and some of those songs are just so good. The most famous song he wrote was "Send in the Clowns." And he actually said, I purposely write songs that that no one would ever want to sing as a popular song. But then Send in the Clowns, I think Frank Sinatra or Sarah Vaughan or something recorded it, and then now it's become a staple of shows. I met Stephen right after one of his shows, Passion, which I don't really remember that well.
Yeah.
It was based on a French movie, but he wrote all the songs in it, and he. Of course, a few movies have been made of his stuff. The first movie was A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Zero Mostel. He did not like that movie. Then there was another movie called Little Night Music, the one with Send in the Clowns with Elizabeth Taylor, and he didn't like that movie. And then I think the third one was Sweeney Todd, and he liked that one.
Yeah, I got that one on there too.
Sweeney Todd. And then I think a fourth one was made. Not a whole lot of his stuff has become movie.
Sunday in the Park with George.
Well, that's never been a movie. You can see it on PBS. A lot of these you can see on PBS. And a lot of them he collaborated with other people. Leonard Bernstein, he did West Side Story. He wrote just the lyrics. And I think he wrote just the lyrics for Gypsy. But what was I going to say? The most famous of his shows, and the one that's most performed, is Into the Woods. And when they made a movie about that with Meryl Streep and a lot of others, that Johnny Depp was in that one too. He was happy with that. And then he was 90 years old when he died, but I think that was the last one while he was alive that they made of one of his shows, and he was happy with how that turned out. So yeah, Stephen Sondheim is quite the talent. Yes, and there's one song I really like that he wrote called "I'm Still Here."
Oh yeah.
And he also had a song that Liza Minnelli sang with the Pet Shop Boys called. I'll remember in a moment. And a lot of his songs, he writes a lot of good songs for women. Women like singing his songs. So, anyway, so I've been listening to what we have, Bing Crosby.
Yeah, he's really good.
Now, Bing Crosby was a great singer, and everyone knows Bing Crosby, White Christmas and all. I noticed on this album, this is greatest since they put White Christmas first.
Yeah.
And they put White Christmas first, but that's so you could skip to the second one. You don't have to listen to White Christmas in the middle, because you don't want to hear Christmas music during the rest of the year. But you can't really do an album of his greatest hits without putting White Christmas on there. But he actually introduced a lot of songs. When the Blue of the Night Meets the Gold of the Day, Swinging on a Star, and Accentuate the Positive.
That was my grandfather's favorite song.
What?
Would you like to swing on a star?
Would you like to swing on a star?
Yeah, he used to have the piano sheet music for that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the song, I just remembered the Stephen Sondheim song with Liza. It's called Losing My Mind.
Oh, yeah.
And check that out. It's like a rock and roll version of the song. It's just so good, yeah. And the Pet Shop Boys. Don't Fence Me In. There's, I didn't know, he, on this album has the Whiff and Poof song. We are poor little lambs who have lost our way. Ba, ba, ba. I always thought that was a weird song. Singing about lambs. Yet it's what, the Yale, and the Yale, one of the Yale songs from Yale University.
Yeah.
Rudy Valley, of course, had a hit with that. But so did Mr. Crosby. Crosby, of course. If you're old enough, if you're my age, you probably remember Crosby in all the Christmas specials and appearances on talk shows and stuff. And that's the old Bing Crosby. The young Bing Crosby from the 1930s is really good. He had, in fact, he was the first one to sing the way he did. He started off with Fred Waring's Pennsylvanians, and they were like a harmony group that sang with the Fred Waring band. This is back in the 1920s, and then he did well for himself, and then became a movie star, and he was with Bob Hope, and he won an Oscar, believe it or not, for the movie Going My Way, which he sings Swinging on a Star. Bing was a good actor. He was, I think somebody said, George C. Scott said it was his favorite actor was Bing Crosby when he was a kid. But if you actually listen to him singing as a younger man, songs like Just a Gigolo and stuff, and Just for a Thrill, songs like that, he truly is great. When you saw him as an old man with his second wife and all those kids, and Mary Crosby, he was kind of past his prime at that point. You know how he died?
How?
He was in Spain playing golf and had a heart attack on the golf course.
Oh, wow.
He died suddenly. You probably remember him singing with David Bowie, the Little Drummer Boy.
Yeah, his granddaughter is an actress too.
Well, no, his granddaughter, Denise Crosby, is one of his sons. From his first family, from his first
marriage.
First marriage. Well, his wife died, Dixie, and then he married Catherine Crosby, a much younger woman, had 3 kids with her. But he was an old man then. He was probably 55 when he started having a second group of kids. But he was a tough father, from what I gather. He was a little easier on his second bunch of kids, but he comes from a Irish family like I do, and it's rough. And they can be, in those days people were a little rougher on their kids. I think in his case he might have been a little too rough on him. He was more like a lion tamer than a father at times. His son Gary, who became an actor and a singer too, he became wrote a book about him after he died and called it Daddy Dearest, or Going My Own Way. He was going to call it Papa Dearest or something like Mommy Dearest, but he called it Going My Own Way, and it was about the rough times he had with his father growing up. 2 of his sons, after he died, committed suicide of his first 4 or 5 kids. So that all goes to show you that you could be a successful guy. No one was more successful singer than Bing Crosby. But then you could still have these flaws and still have these troubles, He, what else can I tell you about Bing? This is really good. If you find it later in his life, he did an interview with Barbara Walters where he talks about troubles he's had with family and in his career and everything. he was very modest. He was the first. All these singers like Bing Crosby and Dean Martin, that's who they looked up to. You know, back before Bing Crosby, singers used to sing like Nelson Eddy or James Melton. They sang like opera singers. You know, who's Nelson Eddy? Who was the other? And they but he was the first one to sing kind of like a normal person would sing. You know.
Yeah.
And but he became popular. And this is back in the early 1930s. And whenever the critics in those days didn't like his singing, he'd say, "I don't take myself seriously, and neither should you," which I think is a good way to be. So that's the Bingle.
Yep.
Bing Crosby, yes.
Yep.
We have, I don't have a whole lot to say about Floyd Cramer.
Yes.
What do you know about Floyd Cramer?
I don't really know anything about him, really, but I've heard
I don't know anything about Floyd Cramer either,
yeah.
as a person. I know his son can play all his music this way he did.
He's really good, though.
And he never sang. He was strictly a country music type of arranger, and he a lot with RCA. And he also, the reason why I bring him up is this is a really good album. It's all instrumentals. He had one big hit called Last Date, but there was a song called Flip, Flop, and Bop, which I really like. And this was my theme song when I was on the radio. And it's time for the Kaye Lazar show. Well, actually, my name wasn't Kaye Lazar in those days. It was Colin Morrow. And I had a different theme, which it made me take off. It was they said it was too sexual. It was called "Hold On, I'm Coming," and it was by Sam and Dave. But it was a more country music version with Waylon Jennings and Jerry Reed.
Yeah.
And I said, "Who's complaining?" I said, the owner of the station says, "People are complaining about this." I said, "Who? Name one." He's the owner of the station. He can do what he wants. People talk. So I changed it to an instrumental, which was not very controversial at all. Flip, Flop, and Bop. And he came to Richmond once. I didn't see him, but he played with the Richmond Symphony, and they played my theme song. If I have to call it my theme song on the commercials, and I almost jumped out of my chair. And that's my theme song when I was on the radio. All right. Yeah. Flip, Flop, and Bop. Maybe I'll put that in the comments.
He's really good.
Yeah, that's Floyd Cramer. Oh, by the way, Floyd Cramer played with lots of piano accompaniment to lots of famous people, including Elvis Presley. And if you ever get a song called by Eddie Arnold called "You Don't Know Me," when Elvis's version of it, I think it's in one of his movies, Floyd Cramer's playing the piano. Yeah. And that's good to know. All right. Yeah. Speaking of Elvis,
Carl Perkins.
Carl Perkins wrote Blue Suede Shoes.
Yeah, he did that hit, Blue Suede Shoes.
Yeah.
You could do anything in my blue suede shoes.
Yes. I could do anything. I believe my... Now his story is a little bit sad. Carl, even though he had a long career, Carl Perkins was Sun Records. RCA wanted to sign someone from Sun Records. They signed Elvis, and Sun Records said, "Go ahead and sign." Sam Phillips said, "Go ahead. Carl Perkins is going to be a bigger star than Elvis ever will be." And what happened was Carl Perkins probably could have, been up there, but what happened was Carl Perkins was in a terrible car accident. I think his brother died in the car accident, and he was laid up for about this is just when he was getting started, and he was getting some sort of momentum. So after 2 years, the shine was off of him, and he just became just a typical singer after that. In fact, Elvis, who was a friend of Carl Perkins, wanted to pay tribute to Carl Perkins and recorded Blue Suede Shoes, which is probably the worst thing that could happen to Carl Perkins because, as it turned out, Elvis had a much bigger hit than Carl Perkins did, and of course Carl Perkins wrote it. Carl Perkins, great rockabilly singer. Carl Perkins has 3 songs. I think it's Blue Suede Shoes, Matchbox, and Honey Don't. You probably know these songs, and if you know them, you know them as Beatles songs. And Beatles early in their career sang a lot of covers, more so than they did later in their career. and the most they sang were 3 of Carl Perkins songs, and those were the songs. Carl Perkins, I think, finally lucked into being the head of Johnny Cash's band. So when you saw Johnny Cash perform, Carl Perkins was leading the band. He might sing backup, but he wasn't singing there. I think every once in a while, Johnny Cash would take a break and say, "We have Carl Perkins here. He's going to sing some of his hits." And of course, he'd sing "Blue Suede Shoes," and everyone would be excited about that. Carl Perkins. I remember Carl Perkins kind of made I mentioned David Bowie earlier. There's a really good scene as an actor. Carl Perkins is in a movie called Into the Night, a John Landis film with Jeff Goldblum, and it's famous for having a lot of cameos in it. And there's a hitman played by David Bowie. Oh, I mentioned my name was Colin Morrow. His name is Colin Morris, and I always thought that I think they stole that name from me. Well, anyway, there's this fight to the death between a bouncer played by Carl Perkins and David Bowie. But what was funny about it is while they're fighting, the Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer characters leave the scene, and you never know who wins that fight. Yeah. Because it looks like they're going to kill each other. Yeah. I put my money on Carl Perkins though. But that was Carl Perkins, quite a fascinating guy. I mentioned another guy that ran a band. Chris Christopherson's band was run by a guy called Billy Swan, and Billy Swan had only one hit called "I Can Help," which is a really good song. Yeah. And I think yeah. When your child needs a daddy, I can help. You know that song. So what's funny about that show, I think when you saw Chris Christopherson, he would take a 10-minute break and let Billy Swan sing a bunch of his songs, including I Can Help, and everyone, oh, I know that song, I can well. Yeah. I once saw a show, Dan somebody.
Fogelberg?
Maybe it was Dan Fogelberg, but whoever he was, he used to be English Dan and John Ford Coley, and they had a few hits. Yeah. And the Dan, maybe it was Dan Seals, I think. Well, anyway, whoever it was, he would stop. He goes, "You probably remember this other song I sang with another guy," and he sang, he sang, "Oh, I know that song. I know that song." So I was watching. Some people, they talk about one-hit wonders back in the day. Yeah. But there's still one hit no wonder. Pitbull has really only had one hit. I think Pink has only had one hit. I mean, if you're big fans, you know all their hits. But not everyone's Taylor Swift with hit after hit. Not everyone's the Beatles with hit after hit. Yeah. And sometimes that one hit makes their career. Yep. There was a band, the Little River Band, and you go see their shows. They do a 2-hour show. But everyone's waiting for the last song, reminiscing. Yeah. So, that's how it goes. I could hardly wait, I said to myself. Yeah. We'll be dancing in the dark. Yep. Walking in the park and reminiscing. Yeah. Speaking of Elvis, I got an Elvis tie-up. Yay. This is All Shook Up. Yeah. So, I try to dress up for your shows because I like doing your show, and I want to look my best for your show. So thanks for having me here today. Yes. So anyway, thanks for having the show. I guess we'll do another show in a few weeks. Yeah. Yes. I just want to say thank you all for tuning in, and God bless you all. Take care. This is the Mary Elizabeth Variety Hour. Thank you. No problem.